We are back at 8:11, and this morning we're kicking off a special series, Getting into College Today, a crib sheet on how to get your kids into the school of their choice. You know, a lot has changed in the past 30 years, so parents may not recognize the long and difficult process ahead. The year was 1976. A loaf of bread cost 30 cents. Gas was just 61 cents per gallon. And the average price of a home, $54,000. Today, life is very different, and so is the process of getting into college. When Matt arrived at Ohio University in the mid-1970s, he had it pretty easy. Academic requirements were loose. In fact, the school doesn't have any on record for 1976. Today, solid students have the advantage. But making the cut is not only about making good grades.
Yesterday's safety schools are today's competitive colleges.
Across the board, the competition is stiffer. In 1976, only 49% of high school graduates went on to college. By 2004, that number was 67%.
Not only are there more students from the U.S. going to college, but we have students from all over the world who want to come to U.S. colleges. It's a numbers game.
At my alma mater, Tufts University, 6,241 students applied in 1976. In 2006, 15,294 applied, and enrollment has only increased by 100 students in those 30 years. And if you're lucky enough to get in, how do you afford it? Al Roker paid about $600 to attend the State University of New York at Oswego. Today, in-state residents can attend for $4,350 a year. At the University of Oregon, where Ann Curry shelled out about $700 for tuition and fees, costs have risen to nearly $6,000.
The well-heeled kids can afford college. The disadvantaged kids have some great opportunities for need-based aid. But the middle-class kids, the blue-collar kids with two working parents are often the ones whose choices are very much driven by the bottom line.
Another tough reality in an increasingly tough process. Michele Hernandez is a college admissions counselor and a former admissions officer at Dartmouth College. Michele, good morning to you.
Good morning.
I have a senior in high school, and this is the kind of stuff that makes me a nervous wreck because we are told repeatedly it is so competitive right now for kids. Even the best kids are worried, sick about whether they get into school. So when should they really start the process?
Well, it's hard to say because you don't want to escalate the pressure and say that you have to start in kindergarten. Unfortunately, in New York City, I think it does start in kindergarten. I think it's a lot saner, really, to wait till the kids are older. But you can always encourage a love of reading and exploration when your kids are very young. I mean, I have a 3-year-old and a 9-year-old, and, you know, really, I'm not reading Shakespeare to them at this age quite yet. But you just have to make them enjoy what they're doing and love what they're doing.
You don't want to raise a neurotic child who's worried all the time about what's coming up next.
No, that's my goal, too, not to do that. No, and I have people call me all the time who want to hire me for their 2nd and 3rd graders. And, you know, I don't even start with kids till 8th grade. It's just too early before then. You know, who wants to work with a 3rd grader?
How many colleges should a kid apply to?
Well,
realistically,
that depends because a lot of, you know, for the schools that still have early decision and early action, if you're lucky, you can only apply to one college, and that's what I would recommend, at least at the beginning.
Can you just explain the difference between early decision and early action?
Sure, yeah. Early decision is a binding policy, so you apply by November 1st, and you hear by December 10th or so, and if you get in, that's it. You don't apply to any more schools, and if you apply early action, same thing, except for you don't have to say yes to their offer. You can wait until the spring, so it's a nice option. However, your odds are much better at an early decision school. So, for example, at a school like Dartmouth, you have 3 times the odds of getting an early decision than you do regular.
Because they obviously then look at you and think, well, this kid really wants to go here.
Right, and now a couple schools are getting rid of it, so there's sort of in a transition now, like, you know, Princeton and Harvard just got rid of their early policies, so now we kind of have to wait and see what the other schools do. You know, that might not be an option in the future, but right now it's the best option for kids who really are interested. And actually for low-income students, it's a great option too. Sometimes they're afraid to apply early, but actually there's just as much aid, if not more sometimes, because the schools are actively recruiting lower-income students. So kids should not be afraid to apply early.
I want to look at some of the ways that a student can improve their acceptance odds. Number one, you say apply early decision. This is what we just talked about, obviously. 2 is find the perfect match. What do you mean?
Well, I mean, the problem is colleges don't like sort of the I'm applying because your school has a good name approach. So if you just tell Harvard you're applying because it's Harvard and you think it's a great school, that's not a very compelling reason for admissions officers. But if you found out, for example, that Barnard College in New York City had the world's greatest Renaissance art history program, that would be a terrific reason to apply because you did your research. You found a school that had a program that you liked, that's in a field that you're interested in.
Well, so many kids limit the number of schools they're going to look at. They only want to look at the Ivies or the top 20%, and they miss out on so many great opportunities. Another of the things you suggest is to sell yourself. Show your stuff. Is that on the application?
Well, that's one of the problems. I mean, in my opinion, the application doesn't ask the right questions to help kids tell more about themselves. So what I do as an independent counselor is that I really help kids show more about themselves. Kids are often afraid to express their real selves in the application, and often their most interesting things they don't want to write about. So I guess my general advice would be if you do something interesting, or even if you do something like, you know, you have responsibilities at home, like you take care of your siblings, or, you know, you work. A lot of kids won't even think to mention that, but maybe they weren't captain of the football team because they were responsible for taking care of a sibling, or their parents came home late from work and they had to run the household. Those are very important things to say on your application.
So this is your chance, and go for it.
You can't leave any information out. You really have to highlight, you know, what's good about yourself, because the colleges will not have a psychic flash while they're reading your application.
And you also say, just in summing up, to visit the colleges in person and try the ACT instead of the SATs. Sometimes you have a more of a leg up with that. Thank you so much. We've run out of time. We could talk about this all day. I could, for sure. Michele Hernandez, thank you. And tomorrow on Getting Into College Today, we're going to introduce you to 3 families as they start the admissions process, and we'll follow them through next spring when the high school seniors find out where they're going to go.